It was Christmas Eve, 1971. 92 people were on Lanza Flight 508, flying from Lima to the jungle city of Pucallpa in Peru. Families, travelers, a few students heading home for the holidays. Among them, 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke, a quiet, curious girl sitting next to her mother. Outside the window, the clouds thickened into dark towers. Lightning flickered. Passengers tightened their seatbelts. Then a flash, a deafening crack. The plane was hit. In seconds, the aircraft began to break apart. Juliane felt her body pulled into the air, the roar of wind filling her ears. The world became white noise and then silence. She was falling, still strapped to her row of 3 seats, spinning through open sky. Below her, nothing but endless, green, living jungle. What followed is one of the most astonishing survival stories ever recorded. To understand how Juliane survived, you have to understand where she came from. Her parents, Hans Wilhelm and Maria Koepcke, were German zoologists. They ran a research station called Panguana, deep in the Amazon basin, studying birds and mammals. Juliane had spent years there swimming in rivers, helping tag animals, learning which plants could irritate your skin, which snakes to avoid, and how to find direction by following flowing water. In the city, she attended a German high school in Lima, but the jungle was her true classroom. When school ended that December, Juliane and her mother decided to fly to Panguana to meet her father for Christmas. They almost didn't board that flight. Her father had warned them. The airline, LANSA, had a poor safety record, but all other flights were booked, so they took their chances. That decision would change everything. Flight 508 departed Lima around noon. Within half an hour, the plane entered a storm system rising over the Andes. Turbulence shook the cabin violently. Overhead, bins burst open. Luggage and gifts tumbled through the aisle. Passengers cried, others prayed. Juliane remembers seeing lightning all around them, and then one bolt hit the right wing. The aircraft instantly shuddered. She saw flames. Her mother said quietly, "Now it's all over." At 21,000 feet, the plane disintegrated. The next thing Juliane knew, she was falling. She could see the treetops rushing up toward her, green waves moving like the ocean. Experts believe the row of 3 seats she was strapped to acted like a wing, slightly reducing her descent speed. The dense canopy of the rainforest further cushioned her fall. Then, impact. Everything went black. When she regained consciousness, it was daytime. She was alone, lying under her seat, surrounded by shattered trees and silence. Juliane's first thought was for her mother. She called out again and again, but no answer came. Her injuries were serious: a broken collarbone, deep cuts on her arm and leg, and one eye swollen shut. Rain poured down. The temperature dropped. She crawled under her seat for shelter, trembling from shock. When she awoke the next morning, she realized the scale of what had happened. Bits of luggage hung from branches. Pieces of the fuselage were scattered like toy parts, and everywhere, thick, humid jungle that never seemed to end. Her only food was a small bag of candy she'd found near the wreckage. Juliane was frightened, but not lost. She knew what her father had taught her. If you follow a stream, it will always lead to a river, and rivers lead to people. That single rule became her mission. Juliane began walking along a tiny creek. The terrain was brutal roots, mud, and thorny vines that sliced her skin. The humidity was suffocating. Clouds of mosquitoes followed her. Leeches attached to her feet and legs when she waded through water. She drank from the stream constantly. It was risky, but she knew dehydration would kill her faster than bacteria. By the 4th day, she found wreckage, a section of seats half buried in mud. Inside were 3 passengers still strapped in. One of them, she thought, might be her mother. She couldn't stay. She whispered a goodbye and kept walking. Each night, rain soaked her clothes. She slept in the mud, listening to the sounds of howler monkeys and distant thunder. On the seventh day, her wounds had become infected. Maggots writhed under her skin. She could feel them moving. Still, she pressed on. Her vision blurred. Hunger gnawed at her. Sometimes she thought she saw roofs through the trees, only to realize they were leaves shaped by her imagination. But every step downstream brought her closer to the unknown hope of help. On the 10th day, Juliane stumbled upon a larger river, and there, half hidden under trees, she saw something man-made, a small boat. Next to it stood a wooden shelter used by lumber workers. Inside, she found a can of gasoline. She remembered one of her father's field tricks: gasoline kills maggots. With shaking hands, she poured the liquid over her wounds. The pain was unbearable, but it worked. Too weak to move on, she lay down in the hut and waited. The next morning, she heard men speaking Spanish. At first, they thought she was a sukuna, a jungle spirit. Pale, gaunt, covered in insect bites and dirt, she looked more ghost than human. But when she spoke, they realized she was real, and she told them she had fallen from the sky. They treated her wounds, fed her, and the next day took her by canoe through the river to the nearest village. From there, she was flown to a hospital in Pucallpa and finally reunited with her father, who had already begun searching the crash site. Out of 92 passengers, Juliane Koepcke was the only survivor. Her survival shocked the world, and reporters flooded the hospital. Some doubted her story until rescuers confirmed the location of the wreckage she described, deep inside the forest. Later investigations concluded the plane had disintegrated at around 10,000 feet. 17 passengers initially survived the fall, but none, except Juliane, lived long enough to be found. She later wrote, "When I fell, I lost my mother, my friends, and the world I knew. But the forest I had feared became my protector." Juliane eventually returned to Germany, completed her studies, and became a mammalogist like her parents. She helped preserve the same rainforest that had once tried to kill her. In 1998, filmmaker Werner Herzog, who had narrowly missed being on that same flight, retraced her journey in his documentary Wings of Hope. Juliane herself guided him back to the crash site. Today, she continues her conservation work at the Panguana Biological Station. Her story remains a symbol of resilience, proof that knowledge, calm, and courage can overcome even the most impossible odds.